Israel's holiest object was once located under the Dome of the Rock, located on the rock that is now covered by that big golden dome. The rock itself is known as the foundation stone. Muslims contend that this stone was the launching pad for Muhammad's trip to heaven upon his horse named Barak. Some Christians, who believe the Temple Mount was the site of a Roman Antonine fortress, claim that this stone was the pavement on which Jesus was tried by Pilate. But most Christians, and nearly all Jews, believe this rock was part of the Holy of Holies, where the Temple of Solomon once stood. And on this rock is a carved out area that's a perfect rectangle. This carved out area is exactly the dimensions of the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark that we know was in the Holy of Holies of the Jewish temple. So did the Ark of the Covenant once stand on that spot? That's what we're contending in this video, so let's get started. So who would have quarried out that carved out area? Well, Solomon was the king when this place was carved. And he had this to say in the Bible, and there I have provided a place for the ark, in which is the covenant of the Lord, that he made with our fathers when he brought them out of the land of Egypt. 1 Kings 8:21. The Hebrew word for place in this verse is makom, which literally means the standing place, or place where the ark was to stand. This is exactly what we find on the rock under that dome. Close examination of this stone is now unfortunately nearly impossible because the interior of the Dome of the Rock is off limits to non-Muslims, but it wasn't always this way. In the 1970s, a Christian architect, Liam Rittmeyer, was able to conduct an archaeological and architectural study of the entire Temple Mount, including the area within the Dome of the Rock. And using photos from above the rock, Rittmeyer was able to accurately measure the cutout area. Here is what he had to say about it. Quote, "A Franciscan archaeologist photographed the rock from above in the 50s. I received these photographs, and I could accurately measure things. That's when I discovered that near the center of that rock, which apparently was the center of the Holy of Holies, there is a rectangular rock cutting. I measured it, and it turned out that the length of the rectangle is 1.28 meters, which is 2.5 cubits, according to the royal or sacred Egyptian cubit. This is exactly the length of the Ark of the Covenant, according to the Torah. I read in the book of Kings that Solomon had prepared a place just like this for the Ark of the Covenant. Why was it necessary to prepare a place? Because it was necessary to create a level space on top of the mountain so that the ark would stand firm and straight. To my understanding, that was exactly the place he prepared." End of quote. Now there's a legend that the rock was damaged by crusaders 1,000 years ago. Some contend this cutout area could have been from their damage when they took stones out of the rock as souvenirs. Here's what Rittmeyer had to say about that. Quote, "The crusaders did cause damage there, but the upper part of the rock, where the Holy of Holies was, remained almost unchanged. Just like in ancient times, the crusaders cut steps that ascended to the top of the bedrock from the western side and quarried to the north of it as well as to the eastern side. And then they sold the hewn stone for their weight in gold." End of quote. This channel asks, what would be the chances of them cutting a rectangle, let alone one that was the exact size of the ark? Right, the chances would be about 0. Now, some scholars and rabbis claim the Ark of the Covenant, which disappeared at the end of the First Temple period, by the way, should be looked for below the floor of the cave in the Dome of the Rock, the Cave of Souls. Rittmeyer was asked what he thought about that, and he had this to say, which is somewhat controversial. Quote, "I claim that the so-called Well of Souls does not exist." So his answer was no, that the Ark isn't beneath the Temple Mount at all, in his opinion. In fact, he says, the infamous Well of Souls, where many think the Ark is, doesn't even exist. He continues, one of the Franciscan priests who documented restorations in the cave during restoration work, when the pavement of the Dome of the Rock was removed, discovered that apart from about 30 centimeters of thick dirt in the cave, no cistern or cave could be seen, only continuous rock. End of quote. So let's stop there for a second. Rittmeyer is basing his opinion on a Franciscan priest who had a chance to look at it in the 1950s. This is the same guy who took the pictures from above. He continues, Rabbi Getz excavated in 1981 in the tunnel of Warren's Gate in search of the Ark of the Covenant. This is what we referred to in our other video. And stirred up the country because he wanted to reach under the Dome of the Rock and where he thought that the Ark of the Covenant is located. I do not believe this theory, end of quote. So why is Rittmeyer's claim controversial? A city engineer of Jerusalem in the middle of the 19th century, so we're going back 100 years before that Franciscan priest made his report, sketched the Well of the Souls, which according to Rittmeyer does not even exist. This engineer claimed it's a vast space full of earth and rocks, and told that he had been able to enter it through a channel which leads to it from another water cistern, which is north of the Dome of the Rock. Such a pit is also compatible with the Jewish sage Maimonides of over 1,000 years ago, who says that the Ark was placed under the Holy of Holies in a, quote, deep and crooked cavern. So Rittmeyer was asked, if it's not there, where should we look for the lost Ark? His best guess was that a search should be made for the house of the Kohathite family of priests that was responsible for carrying the Ark back in the days when they wandered in the desert. The family of Elishaphan ben Uziel. His guess is that it's buried beneath that family home. Rittmeyer shared the saga. Quote, back in 586 BC, whoever knew that the Babylonians were on their way to Jerusalem, intending to destroy the city, would probably have hidden the Ark. This is what I would have done myself if I had been in their place. I guess those people hid the Ark in their private residence until the storm was over. But afterwards, the location was forgotten. Probably, in this channel's opinion, because those people were killed or stayed in Babylon. The knowledge of that spot was lost because the people never came back. Rittmeyer continues, I think I know to point out where this family lived up to the proximity of a square kilometer. This is an area of caves. More than that, I will not say. So, he seems to think he knows where it is. Interesting. I wonder what kind of plans he has to look into that area. But one of the most interesting things about the cutout area of the Ark is that when the Ark sat in the cutout, it was the short end or the width end that faced out. One would imagine that the longer lengthwise dimension would face out, as we always see that way in pictures, but it was the short end that did. The cherubim that perched above the mercy seat then would not be seen except in profile. And the priests who sprinkled blood on the mercy seat on Yom Kippur would have to approach it from the side of the Ark to be able to do that. So you have to ask, why was it positioned this way? The answer is to accommodate the poles that were used to carry the Ark. If it was lengthwise, their poles would not have fit as well, but widthwise, the poles would stick out actually into the curtain. But if it was into a wall, it wouldn't have worked. So we've spent a lot of time talking about the Ark's position on the Temple Mount. But you know, what if the ark wasn't located there at all? Some think it was located in the city of David. Maybe you're one. Well, Rittmeyer actually found more evidence on the Temple Mount that it was the correct location. Click right here to see the video that shows you portions of Solomon's original temple that still exist to this day, and you can see them for yourself. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.